topic I'm covering today is skinning our VCL applications. And skinning, if you're not familiar with the terminology, is to change the look of an application, give it different coloring, different imaging, without having to change our code. And so what I'm going to show is how do we actually do that in our applications, talk about creating custom styles, which is how the skinning works. It's done through a concept of VCL styles, which is different than the FireMonkey styles. They're similar, but we'll see when we talk about how we build the VCL styles and just why they're different. They're specifically designed for the VCL. We've got, and at the last part of the session, I'll talk about supporting VCL styles in any custom controls that you may have created, or probably more prevalent is when the VCL styles doesn't work, why might it not be? And that way you can go and talk to the vendor that you're using and seeing why it's not getting the full support. So to start, I'm just going to do a quick example and show you what the VCL styles is all about. And I'm going to go over to Delphi here. And what I have shown is really just a simple application using the standard controls that come with Delphi. I've got group boxes, check boxes, and so forth, lists, tree views, and so. Regular VCL app, there's no code behind it, it's just presenting data. In order to invoke the VCL styles, we have to go to the program options and the new appearance page. And we'll see that there's a list of a whole bunch of styles that are available for us to pick. And it seems that with each new version of a release, whether it's an update and so forth, more styles get added into the mix here. And the way it works is you always get the Windows style. And the Windows style is the equivalent to the theme support that was started with Windows XP. Before that, your controls took on the look and feel from the Control 3D library. User 3D, everything, User 32, that's where those controls resided. Then they went into the common controls, and the common controls got themed, which meant that you could pick between the blue, the green, and the silver, so they would change a little bit. The way Windows does its theming, including in Windows Vista and in 7, is that they establish bitmap images for the different elements that make up the control. So they've designed a bitmap image for the button, for example. Now, you can create a button any size. You can make a really big one, a really small one, and it looks appropriate. And the reason for that is they don't just do a straight scaling to take a small bitmap image and to make it large. They do a 9-segmented scaling. So you scale the corners, the edges, and then the interior is what fills up. So you get this good look. Well, the reason I bring all that up is that the VCL styles support in Delphi is modeled after that same approach. It actually uses the same coding engine inside of the VCL to do the theming for Windows themes as it does for the VCL styles. So you always get Windows. We also can pick whichever ones we want to pull here. These Metropolis ones are new for XE3. You may notice these fixed versions. Those are my fixed versions because there's some problems with the ones that come out of the box. And Barcadero's aware of that. Hopefully they'll get them fixed in the next one. But actually it's a good point because I'll show exactly why I needed to fix those. But let's pick another couple of obvious ones. The aqua graphite's a nice one to pick. So I can select it, I can click a preview, and it gives me a general idea of what that theme or style should look like. If I pick another one, Cobalt Media, what's that one look like? Okay, they're kind of dark as well. Golden Iceberg Classico, what is it? Oh, that's kind of pretty. So we'll go ahead and select that. So I'll pick the two of those, but which one I want to start with the aqua graphite. Go ahead and click OK, run my app. And it now has the aqua graphite look. It's all the same controls that we're used to using, but instead of picking up the theming from Windows, it's actually picking up the styling from this resource that we specified. So those styles, the aqua graphite, for example, comes into our executable as a resource. And so rather than going out to the Windows library, which has the default styles, we pick the ones from here. And so all the capabilities are in there, the drop downs and so forth, list boxes. I'll talk about what things aren't there in just a minute. Let me go ahead and close that. So that's really what it's about. If I wanted to change that, go back into the program options, change the default to be the iceberg, go ahead and click run. Same app, we get a different look and feel. Or it's not a different feel, it's just a different look. But all the hot tracking and capabilities are in there. All right, let me close that, see if I wanted to highlight any more information on the slides. So at this point, if we wanted to just pick one style and use that, that's all we would really need to do. What's kind of fun, though, is to be able to dynamically change the style that we're using. Maybe you want to pick 2 or 3 of them and give the user a choice. Which one would you like to use? Maybe they want the dark style, maybe they're more traditional, and they want a light background UI. So in order to do that, we need to use the T-Style Manager, which used to be the Theme Manager. Now they've created an alias for it called the Style Manager. It's in the VCL Themes unit. And there's some properties and methods that we can use. So there's a style names class, which gives us a list of all the styles that have been linked into the application. And it uses a generic array. So we're going to use that to access the T-string array. And then once we decide which VCL style we want to use, we can simply call the setStyle method to apply that to the form. So let's take a look at what this is about. And I've kind of set the stage for this already. I've got this select style combo box here, and I'm going to go to the constructor first to see exactly what I need to do to set this up. The init controls is simply setting up the tree to be expanded and other things. We're going to ignore those for now. It populates the list boxes. What's interesting is the iteration over the style names property inside the style manager. So for style name in, the style names do, and I'm just simply adding the style names to the combo box. Straightforward code here. I'm setting the initial index into that combo box to be the default, which is the active style name. So if you wanted to find out so no matter which one we pick, that's what's going to start at. Then the other change is when I make a change in the combo box, on change event fires, I need to populate or change the style by calling setStyle. Pretty straightforward. Go ahead and run this version of it. Now you will see this is why the Iceberg Classico showed up into this combo box. If I go and change it to aqua graphite, it fades out the window, fades it back. It's essentially recreated the window by changing out what resource is used to define all the appearance of the different controls. Likewise, I can go and change this to the Windows version, and it looks like the Windows 7 version of those same controls. Any questions on any of that? It's pretty straightforward. It's kind of fun. It was kind of cool because it's something that people have been kind of wanting to be able to do for a long time. And you could do it in certain things at a control level, but now it encompasses all the controls. So you can really change a dramatic look and feel of your app. So some additional notes on all of this. Actually, I should try this. I'll go through these and I'll explain them. The top level menus are styled. So the menu bar at the top. The menu itself, if I go ahead and run this, it's more clear when I do a dark one. They are not. So they still have the original Windows look. There's a way to work around that. Well, it's a way to work around that by working with a third-party company that I just happen to know a lot about. So I don't get, that's not a workaround of free thing, but there is a way to get around that to support it. I don't want to mislead you guys. Drop-down menus and pop-up menus are not, they don't pick up the VCL styles at this point. The other thing to watch out for is, when I get to the component support section, I'll explain why these things can happen, but not every aspect of every control may pick up the style correctly. As an example, let's go, when we look at the tool, the buttons by default are slammed right up at the top of the toolbar, and I haven't changed any of the sizing or anything that's the defaults. And so one of the things when I would use the standard controls is I would change the border property of the toolbar. And so if I find the border width property and easily change that to say 2, it shifts everything down and it looked better. It was nice and positioned. Needless to say, when I ran the app and switched to my, well, you can even see it there, but it's really noticeable in the Aqua Graphite. I had this big 2-pixel rectangle all around my toolbar. Ugh, yuck is right. So you may run into that. In the VCL controls, there's a couple, there's not many. This is just one that I ran into. There's a couple others that you can see. You may run into this also with third-party controls that you're using. If you do the theme and all of a sudden something shows up in a completely odd color, either all white or all black, or you don't see the, you've lost the text, and so there's some extra steps that they're going to need to do in order to support VCL styles more appropriately. And I'll give you the guidelines of all of those a little bit later. All right, switching back, all forms use the same style. So you are adding it at the application level. Not that you probably would want to switch them, but it has come up in previous sessions where I've done this. People say, hey, can I have one style? I want Aqua Graphite for my main window, but I want Aqua Gold or Golden Graphite for the child windows that pop up, dialogues. Interesting. I wouldn't do that, but you can't do it if you wanted to, so everything uses the same style. What I do want to talk about next is this is fun. Basically, you could finish the session right there. We can use what is provided and start adding styles and changing it and so forth. But the fun is building your own custom style. You want to come up with a unique look and feel into your application, and so what I want to spend the next several minutes talking about is how do we do that. And so there's a style designer that comes with Delphi to do exactly that. It's the Bitmap Style Designer is the name. It used to be called the VCL Style Designer. Now it's called the Bitmap Style Designer. It's different than the FireMonkey Style Designer that I showed in my sessions yesterday. So if you were there, it's a separate app. However, what gets a little confusing is that if you read any of the XE3 promotion material, they talk about how the same VCL Style Designer can be used to make FireMonkey styles. While technically correct, it's a different style. The FireMonkey controls can use bitmap styles now. That's the new feature that was added into FireMonkey 2. And so in order to create those bitmap styles, you can use the same new version of the Style Designer for VCL. The way it works is you set up images for the different elements that you want to style. And typically you'll use PNG images because they support transparency and alpha channels. So you're going to get much better output when you do that. Likewise, if you're going to want to create this, you're going to want a tool that provides support for doing PNG images and the alpha channels and so forth. Especially if you want to do rounded corners of things, you need to have that. Once we see what we have a set of images we're going to use, we're going to bring them into the Style Designer, and then we need to define the various object settings. So which images are we going to use for the normal push button? What image are we going to use when we push that button down? When the mouse is over the button, it's the hot state. all of the different states of a control that we want to support, we have to associate a various image for. I'm going to show you a shortcut to kind of do a quick version of a custom style, and along the way I'll describe kind of the detailed ways if you really wanted to write it from scratch, what you'd have to do.